Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending our concert this evening. This is the first ever in the history of Cal State Fullerton Titan High School Honor Band. Give these students a big round of applause. First ever. First ever. And on behalf of the faculty and administration here at Cal State Fullerton, I'd like to welcome you to Meng Concert Hall. And for us, this ensemble and I got to know each other Thursday of this week for 2 rehearsals, Thursday evening, Friday evening, and then most of the day today. 26 different high schools reflected on stage today throughout Southern California. And that first piece by Yagisawa is a fanfare, which was celebrated, a city, Osaka, Japan, was celebrating a centennial, and that piece of music was written to commemorate that. The second piece of music is written by a composer by the name of David Biedenbender. And this particular piece of music, Dream of Ember, Dream of Star, has some pretty interesting notes to it. So I want to read just a little bit of the score to you so you have a sense as to what this music is about. The composer writes, "It felt like it took a long time to write Dream of Ember, Dream of Star." The composer first started working on the piece in 2019, but as the 2020 premiere approached, and the COVID-19 pandemic canceled the premiere, the composer stepped away from writing it for a while. The premiere of this piece was rescheduled in 2021, but then it was canceled again for the same reason. And the composer found himself in a position of having unfinished material that had 2 premieres go by. So he completely started over, went back to scratch. And what the composer writes is this piece in its current form is not what he started out writing 2 years ago. And it comes from a place emotionally that the composer doesn't know how to accurately describe with words. He writes, "There has been so much fear, so much loss, so much change, so much division, so many different challenges and experiences. For some, I imagine it must seem like an entire lifetime worth of loss over the last short few years." He writes, "This piece has the recurring image of a fire and stars, the warm glow of a campfire under a dark blue sky, and twinkly stars, both emanating light and separated by billions of miles and many years." The second piece is going to be David Biedenbender's Dream of Ember, Dream of Star. Our third piece this evening is Frank Ticheli's setting of Amazing Grace. Frank Ticheli is on the faculty at the University of Southern California, right down the road, and is an important voice and has been for a long time, especially for winds and bands. And I have been so fortunate to have had time where Professor Ticheli is in and present at my rehearsals, and this particular setting of this particular piece, this is what the composer says. He says, "I wanted my setting of Amazing Grace to reflect the powerful simplicity of the words and melody, to be sincere, to be direct, and to be honest, not through the use of novel harmonies and clever tricks, but by traveling traditional paths in search of truth and authenticity." He says, "I believe that music has the power to take us to a place that words alone cannot, and so my own feelings about Amazing Grace reside in this setting that he composed." The spiritual, known as Amazing Grace, was written by John Newton, who lived from 1725 until 1807. He was a slave ship captain who, after years of transporting slaves across the Atlantic Ocean to the New World, suddenly saw the divine grace and the evilness of his ways. This piece was first published in 1835 by William Walker in a book entitled The Southern Harmony. And Amazing Grace has grown to become one of the most beloved of all American spirituals. Frank Ticheli's Amazing Grace. Before we get to our final piece this evening, just a few acknowledgments. First and foremost, the Brothers of Phi Mu Alpha Symphonia. We have some fantastic student organizations here at Cal State Fullerton, and the Omicron Pi chapter of Phi Mu Alpha Symphonia is one of them. I am a proud member of the Epsilon chapter of Phi Mu Alpha Symphonia, but this chapter does so much to help the School of Music, in service to the School of Music, and they have been an absolute delight and complete support of this ensemble from Thursday to today. Can we give them a big round of applause, please? So as I said before, this is the first ever honor band in the history of our institution. And I'd like to thank the 26 high schools and their high school band directors who recommended all of these students on stage to be a part of this. This process actually began in the fall when I sent out an introductory email saying we were doing this and asking the directors to make recommendations for students whom they felt this experience would best serve, and they did a wonderful job. But more than that, they entrusted us, my colleague, Dr. Barr, Director of Bands, and myself, to work with their fine students in a supportive, artistic experience that will help them when they go back to their schools tonight and on Monday. So for those wonderful music educators, my colleagues who are doing fantastic work in their schools across Southern California, can we give them a big round of applause, please? I'd also like to thank the administration of Cal State Fullerton and the School of Music particularly for all of the work to bring this to fruition. For the stage and production crew, for Mike August and Chris Seawright and Jeff Lewis and all of their wonderful folks who help with this, to our director of the School of Music, Dr. Randall Goldberg, who spoke to the ensemble on Thursday and has been a champion of all of the things we're doing. Can we give them a big round of applause, please? Thank you. We were visited on Thursday by the president of Cal State Fullerton. This ensemble, he actually stood on the podium. He came to rehearsal on Thursday and spoke to the ensemble and welcomed them to our campus and spoke to them about the importance of education and how special this is. And President Vergy was so willing with his time, and this is someone who has a lot of fantastic things to do, but he continuously comes to events in the College of the Arts. I had a research presentation Tuesday in the middle of the day, and President Vergy was there, but it was great for our students in the honor band to get the time to speak and hear from the president of Cal State Fullerton. Can we give him a big round of applause for his support? Thank you, President Vergy. And I would like to thank lastly, but certainly not least, the students behind me. We first met on Thursday for the first time. I did not know, I have only been emailing them, so they know me through an email signature. And we met Thursday evening for the first time. They were sent the music, and it was done digitally. They had to download it and practice it and prepare it. And we came in Thursday at 6 o'clock and got right to work. 6 to 9 Thursday, 6 to 9 yesterday, and then most of the day today. And they have been absolutely fantastic collaborators and so willing, and they are just terrific young people. Can we give them a big round of applause and say thank you? Before I get to the final piece, I just want to reiterate how important experiences like this, but also the experiences that are going on in their high schools and in their middle schools are. And we talk a lot about the arts and what the arts does for test scores and all of that stuff. I'd like to speak about the arts for what it does for us as human beings and how important it is on its own. Not because it raises scores or because it helps with attendance or anything like that, but because what happens in the choir room, orchestra room, art room, band room, musical theater, theater room, is a unique curriculum of study that involves a certain type of thinking that is only to be found in the arts. And for that, it is important. So for all you parents, for all the rides and the events and the Saturdays and the lessons and the things like that that go into having a son or daughter in band or in any other art, we want to thank you. So just a big round of applause for why the arts matter. final piece is by composer Michael Markowski. He's a New Yorker. And he writes, this piece is entitled Shine. He writes, "Shine is an exploration of brighter instrumental colors within a world of softer, more muted textures. For the composer, the imagery of light becomes all the more striking when it's rationed against dark and muted romantic landscapes." He says, you can hear this sort of thing throughout the piece. For example, the piece opens with a tight, sustained three-note cluster that is meant to induce a kind of quiet harmonic friction. The saxophone enter first, and then they're soon joined by the French horns. The rhythmic and melodic energy builds to several short, brighter moments, but these joyful moments don't stay for long, as we quickly submerge back into more meditative tones. Michael Markowski's Shine.